The whole East German cabinet resigns amid 200 defectors an hour. Election day in America with abortion a key issue. And new accusations against 4 U.S. senators in a savings and loan corruptions case. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. East and West Germany are facing twin troubles tonight. In the Communist East, the entire communist government of 40 ministers resigned, going out with a desperate appeal to East German citizens to stay on and await reforms. But the move did not satisfy protesters crying for free elections and an end to the Communist Party's stranglehold on power. And it did nothing to stop the flow of East Germans fleeing west to a West German state that is now fast running out of the means to take care of them. Beginning our coverage of the changing face of communism, correspondent Alan Pizzi reports on the communist government resignation in East Germany.
The resignation came almost at the same moment as 3,000 demonstrators jeered and chanted "Power to the People" at the front door of the Central Committee headquarters. But it was only a part of what the increasingly confident unofficial opposition wants. The Council of Ministers runs about 40 ministries and is considered little more than a tool of the ruling Communist Party. The demonstrators were calling for the whole party power structure to yield to free elections. A government spokesman described the situation as economically and politically serious and appealed to people to help keep the country running. Some observers here saw it as a sign that events were beginning to overtake the Communist Party. Demonstrators tonight pushed their way past police, who made only token gestures to stop them. Such action was unthinkable barely a month ago, but the protest movement is being described by some as a revolution.
The demonstration is a call for another kind of revolution, revolutionary thinking on the part of the Central Committee when it meets tomorrow to discuss the increasingly noisy protesters who appear to have seized the political initiative.
5 Politburo members are expected to resign tomorrow, and there is speculation the whole body could quit to give East German leader Egon Krenz room to bring in younger blood.
The Communist Party is still in power and still using the same techniques to secure that power. That is, in fact, using coercion.
Public reaction tended to back that.
I think it's only the first step. The government is only the second layer. The first layer is the Politburo Bureau.
And the ruling elite of East Germany looks increasingly like it is under siege. Alan Pizzi, CBS News, East Berlin.
Of 200 an hour, a rate that is not likely to go down following today's events in East Berlin. West German euphoria over the exodus has begun to turn to dread. West Germans are torn. They have no choice but to welcome them, but they're close to overload.
We want them to stay where they are and to give them better conditions there. They must have human rights at home, and not everybody should come here.
The refugees have overwhelmed West Germany's emergency services. As fast as camps are opened, they fill up. There are 66 now. Tonight, the West German government announced it is doubling its housing budget. 200,000 new dwellings will be built over the next 4 years. 1 million East Germans are expected here in the next 2 years.
We have housing problems and unemployment problems anyhow, but they add to these problems.
This extra burden is beginning to translate into resentment, especially among West Germans looking for jobs. Actually, they get work faster than we do, this woman says, and we get what's left. A month ago, when the first freedom train arrived from Prague, the refugees were applauded. West Germans stepped from the crowd and embraced strangers. Now, when they arrive in West Germany, there is no welcoming committee. Now, instead of a cause for celebration, the refugees are becoming a cause for concern. Martha Teichner, CBS News, Bonn.
Joining us now is our CBS News consultant on Soviet and East European affairs, Professor Steve Cohen of Princeton University. Steve, what's going on here?
Well, what's going on is the wind of change has blown from the east in Moscow all the way to Berlin. I mean, who would have guessed it only a few months ago? Poland, Hungary, now East Berlin. Can Czechoslovakia be far behind? After all, East Germany was the outpost of hardline communism. And now this reformation that's begun in Moscow has spread all the way to Berlin.
Spreading, but why is East Germany so significant?
Well, I suppose you look at it a number of ways. First of all, it has been for years the hardline communist country. If that falls, who can resist? Secondly, this is the focal point of the outcome of World War II. And thirdly, it's an armed camp. I mean, on both sides of that border, enormous numbers of American and Soviet Warsaw Pact troops facing each other. So we're talking about the future face of Europe here.
And what should we be looking for next? Berlin Wall comes down, Germany gets reunited, what?
I think for the next few days and weeks, with the resignation of 40 East German ministers, the key question is this: can the reformers who will now come to power in East Germany, I mean, they've been struggling and wanting change in East Germany for years inside the party, can they, within the limits of one-party rule, produce political reforms that will satisfy the demands of the people in the streets and all those people streaming across the border toward West Germany? That is a very big question mark.
And for Mikhail Gorbachev, does help him, hurt him, or he's already in such deep trouble it doesn't matter?
And I cannot but believe that he is the inspiration behind this. When he went to East Germany not so long ago to see Honecker, it was to say goodbye to Honecker, then the leader of East Germany. He knew this was coming. Personally, I think he knew these changes were going to spread across East Germany 2 or 3 years ago. He hopes to preside over this passage without bloodshed, and I think he wants to talk to President Bush about that at the summit at sea.
He had his own troubles today. Thank you, Steve Cohen. The Soviet Union today celebrated its communist revolution in the midst of a new revolution. Correspondent Peter Van Sant is our man on the scene in Moscow.
Thousands of Soviet citizens celebrated the anniversary of the 1917 Communist Revolution today, but these people weren't among them. You're watching a remarkable historic sight. More than 8,000 demonstrators marching through the streets of Moscow in the first protest of its kind since the 1920s. On the day that people worldwide honored communism's birthday, these Moscow marchers blew out the candles.
We want freedom to press, freedom of speech, and other democratic rights.
I demonstrate against our government and against the role of Communist Party in our country.
Gorbachev faces monumental challenges. His economy is crumbling, as is the average Soviet citizen's faith in his ability to manage the crisis.
People are frustrated, and they think that we must accelerate the tempo
of change.
Of change, yes.
There was some change during today's Red Square celebrations. The usual displays of military might were on hand, but this year's emphasis was brighter. Lots of bands and happy workers, a smiling and cheerful Gorbachev. It's a facade. At 72, communism is showing its age. Soviet citizens say they are fed up. Gorbachev knows he hasn't much time to turn the economy around.
It's rather like trying to change the engines on an airliner while it's flying. It's a task of that magnitude.
In a country where demonstrators now openly shout insults at Lenin's image, there is growing unrest and uncertainty. Peter Van Sant, CBS News, Moscow.
And still to come on your CBS Evening News, Bruce Morton on the why of winning and losing on this election night. And Rita Braver on why the Constitution could protect the mother who may have killed her baby.
A1, it's how steak is done.
For years now, hospitals have been using Tylenol more than all aspirin and ibuprofen brands combined. For instance, back in 1985, hospitals used Tylenol 4 times more than aspirin or ibuprofen. But what about today, when there are so many more of these brands available? The fact is, hospitals now use Tylenol 8 times more than all those other brands. The rate has doubled. Tylenol, now more than ever, the pain reliever hospitals use most.
We're here to gently remind you that you can depend on your mom.
Phillips Milk of Magnesia, the laxative for dependable overnight relief that contains no harsh irritants.
So it's gentle.
Nobody treats you better than Phillips Milk of Magnesia.
Mom knows best. Leave it to Mom.
Do it yourself. Do it for yourself. Do yourself proud with Minwax and Wood.
Wood finish for beautiful color like no other, and Minwax polyurethane for fast drying protection that lasts.
Do yourself proud with Minwax and Wood.
President Bush confirmed today that he has quietly shifted U.S. policy and authorized the release of Iranian assets held for 10 years. This has long been a demand of the Iranian government as a precondition for help in trying to win release of American hostages held by pro-Iranian groups in Lebanon. However, President Bush insists that he is not trying to make a deal, much less pay any ransom. Leslie Stahl covered the White House news conference.
President Bush has decided to clear away a major bone of contention between the U.S. and Iran by expediting the release of frozen Iranian assets. He's hoping the return of $567 million to Iran will lead to the release of the American hostages.
And I'd like to get this underbrush cleaned out now. I think they have made some positive statements, but I don't know whether it'll work that way or not.
Last month, Iranian President Rafsanjani offered help in getting the hostages freed if the U.S. paid back Iran's assets, frozen 10 years ago when the U.S. Embassy in Tehran was overrun. But the Bush White House, eager to avoid even the appearance of a quid pro quo because of the Iran-Contra scandal, insists there is no deal for the hostages.
I hope that they will do what they can to influence those who hold these hostages.
But there has been a shift away from the Reagan administration's insistence after the Arms for Hostages deal was uncovered that the hostages be freed before the assets are released.
So I don't think we ought to be fearful in our country that there be some condemnation of the administration for ransom and so forth if we release money that is Iran's. I think it might very well lead ultimately to flexibility on the hostages.
It might be useful ammunition to those in Iran who are trying to be helpful. They do like money in Iran, and they do need money, so it could be quite a positive thing there.
President Bush says he carries the fate of the hostages with him every single day, and so he has changed the policy. Said an administration official, "We've been listening to Rafsanjani. If the Iranians want to use this asset release as a reason to release the hostages, that's fine with us." Leslie Stahl, CBS News, the White House.
The United States vetoed a UN resolution today that would have condemned Israel for seizing property of Palestinians on the occupied West Bank. The resolution demanded the return of more than $1 million worth of goods seized from Arab villagers who refused to pay taxes to Israel. The vote was 14-1 in favor, but the U.S. veto killed the resolution. The U.S. delegate called it, quote, one-sided. The UN Security Council today voted to create a Central American peacekeeping force. Its mandate is to prevent cross-border attacks and to block military aid to rebel forces such as the rebels in El Salvador and the U.S.-backed Nicaraguan rebels. The United States voted in favor of setting up the UN force, saying it's in line with U.S. support for Central American peace efforts. Today was the first election day in history for the last colony in Africa. People lined up for hours in 95-degree heat on the first 5 days of voting in Namibia. They're choosing an assembly to write a constitution for Namibia after 74 years of rule by South Africa. The group called SWAPO, which fought a long guerrilla war for independence, is expected to win most seats in the new Namibian assembly.
This isn't your regular old party mix. No, this is Crispix Mix. And Crispix is toasted crisp, so it makes your party mix extremely crunchy. Thank you.
Anyone who drives at night knows how important road signage is to safety. That's why 3M is improving signs like this, with brighter signs like this, made with reflective materials invented by 3M to help you see better at night. In fact, the sign on the right is up to 10 times brighter than the sign on the left. And that makes a difference anyone can see. 3M Reflective Materials, another example of how a 3M innovation is working for you.
Take some vegetables and presto salad shooter.
Shoot some slices, salad shooter.
Point and shoot right into stir fry or casserole.
Shoot some shreds, salad shooter.
For hash browns or coleslaw.
Shoot it fast, shoot it neat, shoot it pretty. Pretty salad shooter.
Presto salad shooter slicer shredder. Clean up easy, dishwasher safe. Small enough to store anywhere. Great salads and much, much more.
Salad shooter.
Now a cordless rechargeable salad shooter too from Presto.
13 years on Today, then Jane heads for the nearest exit as Deborah enters as news anchor, and more. This week's People has the story. Plus, oh baby, look who's talking #1 hit movie, and so much more. People, that's what we're all about.
In Washington, more today about the mess at California's Lincoln Savings and Loan, the biggest single S&L failure, which may alone now cost taxpayers $2 billion in bailout money. CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Bob Schieffer reports on testimony charging, not proving, charging that 4 of the best-known names in the U.S. Senate pressured a government regulator not to crack down on risky business practices at Lincoln after they all got political contributions from the man who owned it.
In the most explosive testimony yet, Edwin Gray, the former chief regulator of the savings and loan industry, told Banking Committee Chairman Henry Gonzalez that 4 U.S. senators asked him to ease regulatory pressure on troubled Lincoln Savings and Loan. Gray said in the 1987 session with Senators DeConcini and McCain of Arizona, Cranston of California, and Glenn of Ohio, DeConcini did the talking, urging Gray to cancel a regulation which put the brakes on more risky investments by Lincoln.
And therefore, he wanted me to withdraw the regulation until we could find out whether it was legal. And he said, in turn, that they would get their friend to make more home loans.
The senator's friend was Charles Keating, the wheeler-dealer owner of Lincoln Savings, who contributed hundreds of thousands of dollars to their campaigns and pet political causes, an effort Keating himself later admitted was aimed at getting federal regulators off his back. All the senators deny impropriety. The Arizona senators spoke out today.
There was no deal proposed. There was no deal at all. We didn't even get a chance to go into details with Mr. Gray because he didn't want to talk about it.
Mr. Keating said to me he would like for me to tell Mr. Gray that he would do certain things in return for certain things. I told him that was improper because my job was just to see whether he was fairly treated.
But as Gray told it, enlisting the senator's help was only one part of the pressure. He claimed then White House Chief of Staff Donald Regan arranged the appointment of a Keating associate to the regulatory board. At another point, Gray's deputy received this proposal.
Mr. Keating met with me for the purpose of offering a job to Chairman Gray. There was, in my mind, a clear message. If you can't change the regulator's policies, perhaps you can change the regulator.
Dramatic as it was, today's testimony may be just the beginning in a scandal that seems to grow wider with each public airing. Keating tells the committee his side in 2 weeks. The Senate Ethics Committee is conducting a separate probe of the senators. Bob Schieffer, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
A judge in Los Angeles today sentenced Richard Ramirez, the so-called Night Stalker killer and rapist, to death in the gas chamber. The 29-year-old Ramirez uttered a nearly inaudible statement in court, ending with the words, quote, "Lucifer dwells within us all." He was convicted of 13 murders and 30 other felonies in a crime run that terrorized Southern Californians in 1985. The death sentence will be appealed automatically.
These are oats. Something you've been hearing quite a lot about lately. But while some cereals turn oats into processed oat flour, new oat bake from Kellogg's uses only whole oats. Then we simply bake them with nuts, raisins, and spices for the first cereal that combines the goodness of whole oats with the goodness of baked taste. New Kellogg's Oat Bake, the whole oat cereal with the crunchy baked taste.
At Red Lobster, we know how you love shrimp. Lots of shrimp. So here's 26 shrimp, 4 different ways, all in one dinner. Succulent. Sizzling. Crispy. Savory. It's the ultimate shrimp lover's feast. 26 shrimp, 4 different ways. This week at Red Lobster. And Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, enjoy the shrimp and crab feast, just $10.95. And kids shrimp dinner, all week, just $1.95.
I just did something incredible. 5 minutes ago, I had gray hair, but now I don't. And this is what did it. New Option Instant from Clairol. The advanced way to get rid of the gray. Option Instant for men is different. With theirs, you have to pour and mix ingredients, but Option's the advanced way. All you need is this. It's so easy. And only 5 minutes later, your natural-looking color's back.
The hair feels thicker, too.
New Option Instant from Clairol, the advanced way to get rid of the gray.
Election night 1989, we'll be on later with the results, but you should know that state and local races being watched nationwide for signs of voter attitudes about race, abortion, and the use of negative campaign attacks were all on the ballot today. In Virginia, voters could make Democrat Douglas Wilder the first black elected governor in U.S. history, Wilder running against Republican Marshall Coleman. In New York, voters could make Democrat David Dinkins the first black mayor of the nation's largest city. He's running against former federal prosecutor Republican Rudolph Giuliani. And there's a nasty battle as well for governor of New Jersey, where it's Democratic Representative Jim Florio against Republican Representative Jim Courter. Our chief political correspondent Bruce Morton is here tonight, watching the political shape of things to come. Bruce?
Well, Dan, as you said, these are local elections, but the politicians, as always, will be watching the results, hoping to learn about some national trends. For one thing, how abortion plays as an issue after last summer's Supreme Court decision giving the state some power to limit abortions.
On the issue of abortion, Marshall Coleman wants to take away your right to choose.
In Virginia, Democrat Doug Wilder is the pro-choice candidate, and he's made the abortion issue the centerpiece of his campaign. In our CBS News New York Times exit poll there, almost a third of the voters said abortion was the most important issue, more than named anything else. In New Jersey, voters said it was one of the three most important issues.
Today, people are looking at this issue very seriously, and the mass of voters think it's important, and they are pro-choice, and they're going to vote pro-choice, and I think that's been a very loud and clear message in this campaign.
He fought to improve education.
Another question, how much effect do television ads have? In that Virginia governor's race, 40% of the people we polled said TV ads helped decide their vote. Here in New York City's mayoral race and in the New Jersey governor's contest, about a third. New Jersey had the most negative ads. Both Democrat James Florio and Republican James Courter used Pinocchio.
Poor Jim Florio. Even the newspapers say he has an ethical cloud over his head.
Environmentalists are so disgusted with Courter, they now call him Pinocchio.
New Jersey voters we polled blamed the two campaigns evenly for those negative ads.
Finally, a number of black candidates are running for mayor of mostly white cities this time around. New York, Seattle, New Haven, Connecticut. They're running as mainstream candidates on issues like safe streets and good schools. Politicians will be watching to see how they do. Dan?
Well, and Bruce, what are the chances of the two candidates, David Dinkins and Doug Wilder?
Well, it's interesting, Dan. In a way, they've run very similar campaigns. They're both running as Mr. Middle-of-the-Road candidates who can unite. And there's some evidence that voters around the country like that kind of theme. Each has resisted being painted as an extremist. The last polls before Election Day, before today, showed Dinkins ahead here in New York, showed Wilder ahead in Virginia. Neither man by overwhelming margins. I don't think anybody's going to go to bed right after supper tonight.
And a reminder that the polls are still open in both Virginia and New York, as well as in New Jersey. Thanks, Bruce. Established airline for sale. At least that's one of the options being considered by Braniff, which today canceled all regularly scheduled flights, putting some 1,800 jobs in jeopardy. Braniff urged people holding tickets to check if other airlines would honor the tickets or consult with credit card companies or the airline. Braniff officials said today's action was taken to preserve assets while a reorganization plan is developed.
Doctors measure back pain by how far you can bend. Extra Strength Dones is made for back pain relief with an ingredient these pain relievers don't have. Dones makes back pain go away. Extra Strength Dones, the back specialist.
When that ref called my son offside, it was a Malox moment. I took Extra Strength Malox Plus. I need the strongest with my husband, the ref.
Extra Strength Malox Plus. Strong relief for all your Malox moments.
What's wrong, Doug? Mr. Kayam, I hate shaving. You're using the wrong equipment. Try this Remington microscreen. The microscreen shaves as close as the blade, or your money back. It has two thin, flexible screens. The first shaves incredibly close, the second even closer. And with this convenient charger stand, it's always ready to shave.
Smooth. Now I know why you bought the company.
The Remington microscreen shaves as close as the blade, or your money back. No other shaver makes that promise.
There are two ways to make a Volkswagen go fast. other way is to make a new Volkswagen. Introducing Corrado, the new European-designed, supercharged, intercooled, 140-mile-per-hour Volkswagen. It's time to think about Volkswagen again.
Unusually interesting case at the U.S. Supreme Court today. Arguments in a case of mother and child and the Constitution. CBS News law correspondent Rita Braver reports on a case of competing rights. The rights of a mother refusing to say where her child is versus the rights of the child who may have been a victim of her abuse.
Jacqueline Bonite, suspected child abuser, has been in Baltimore City Jail since April of 1988 for refusing to tell authorities the whereabouts of her son Maurice.
Do you have some ideas about what you'd like to do when you get out?
Yeah.
What is it?
Go straight to my son.
But Bonite's refusal to reveal where her son is has provoked a major test of the Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. In 1986, 4-month-old Maurice was hospitalized with numerous broken bones. Bonite, who is mildly retarded, was observed shaking her baby and dropping him, and he was removed from her custody. But in August of 1987, local authorities allowed Jacqueline Bonite to bring Maurice back home. The city's social services department was supposed to monitor the child, but only one visit ever occurred. And it wasn't until the following spring that the social worker followed up on the case and became concerned because no one had seen the child.
It was a mystery. That's all I could say. They would say that she had killed the baby.
I know that they think that she has either harmed the child or killed the child. And I'm a criminal defense lawyer, and I know I'm looking at a possible criminal case. And I assert the Fifth Amendment on her behalf.
And at the Supreme Court today, Bonite's lawyers insisted that local authorities just don't have enough evidence to bring charges against her for harming Maurice. They said that's no reason to try to force her to confess in violation of her constitutional rights.
We urge this court, and we urge the American people, don't take leave of your senses because children are involved. The Fifth Amendment protects our entire society.
However, the attorney for the state insisted a child's rights must come first.
Children are different. They've been recognized by the law to be different for the obvious and fundamental reason that they have no ability themselves to protect themselves.
An angry Justice Harry Blackmun demanded to know why local authorities had returned the baby to an abusive mother. The attorney for the state admitted it was a great error, but agreed with child welfare experts who say that still doesn't absolve Bonite.
The parent still has an obligation to protect their child, and certainly not to harm their child. And if they do, then the state has to be able to come back in.
Now the Supreme Court must decide whether the rights of Maurice or those of his mother must prevail. Rita Braver, CBS News, Washington.
And that's part of our world tonight. Dan Rather for the CBS Evening News. Stay tuned to this station for up-to-date election returns. I'll see you again somewhere along the way.
I'm Harry Smith.
And I'm Kathleen Sullivan. Tomorrow we'll bring you the latest Election Day results and interviews.
Also, more TV Moms with Isabel Sanford and the Grateful Dead on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.
Coming up.